Okay, so it's recording, handing over to Colleen and Josh for highest expressing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. For those who don't know me, my name's Colleen, it says there, and I'm in Melbourne, Australia, down the bottom of Australia, and I'm a master coach and trainer.
And I'm in the other end of Australia, up further north in Queensland. I'm also a trainer and a master coach, and excited to be sharing a bit about highest expression today. It's great to kind of jump in and work with Colleen to go over it, a bit of a refresh. I was surprised going through the book, rereading the book, and went, actually, reading with a new set of eyes make new distinctions and new learnings. I thought that's really cool. So encourage you guys, if you haven't had a read of it, so they're not big chapters, jump in, have a read, and there's some great little bits in there, and that's part of what we'll talk about. I guess it's only a small group, so why don't we go around and do a quick intro, 30-second intro. Done a bit of who you are and where you guys are, but also a bit about maybe one line or one sentence about what's the bit that you truly enjoy about the highest expression step in the roadmap.
Sarah, can I start with you?
Hey, sure. Sarah Whalen. I am an mBIT master coach and trainer living in the U.S., specifically now in Texas. So I trained for a master coach and trainer back in 2016. I can't believe it's been that long already. Goodness. The thing that I continue to love the most about highest expressing in every single process of using mBraining, my clients, friends, family, anybody I'm working with always gets a result. And it astounds me that it's always at 100%. And for myself personally, just being on this journey of deepening sense of my true authenticity, my true self, and seeing that evolve and stepping into it more and more has been really profound for me, especially in the last 18 months, because I'm stepping more and more into the role of being an energetic healer, which is something that I always ignored previously. So it's an interesting space to be in now, to be truly expressing myself authentically. So.
Very cool.
Beautiful.
Nice.
Miriam? Thank you, Sarah.
Well, just to say who we are and what we're, okay. So I'm in Cork in Ireland. I trained, I suppose, 4 years ago with Reb and Mark and Bernie Rogers. And I've just got the Love in Your Life license. So at the moment, I'm steeped in that wonderful, all that sort of area, and availing in lockdown of all the practices and all the supports. So I'm sort of getting more and more into the mBIT, and I suppose in the third act of life. I was in education up to 5 years ago. So I'm in a transition and would love to use this with maybe people who are transitioning, or with parents of children with autism that I worked with. I think it would be lovely for them to get into their heart. We've all lived in our heads for so long. So I'm working a lot on my, I suppose, my own sense of the whole area, and hoping to branch out into maybe a workshop or something shortly.
Cool. Awesome.
Beautiful. Thank
Thanks.
you. Brian?
Hi, I'm just an mBIT coach, or just an mBIT coach in the sense that I've done my training in February, just before the COVID started, and actually haven't had much experience outside of the group of training, not with any clients. I don't have a practice of my own yet. And my training was part of a hypnotherapy training, which I recently finished. So my experience with I don't have any good real experiences with clients with highest expression. And
what's your understanding of highest expression?
Just, well, yeah, that's a good one. I don't know. I'm not even sure, actually. I just think
That's okay.
after,
That's what we're here for, to explore that further.
yeah. So I'm
Okay.
happy to be here right now.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I just take one word out of your description, Brian? Just.
Sorry?
Yes, just.
Get rid of that word, just.
The moment I said it, I heard myself say it. It says,
Come
okay,
back, come back.
I need to get that.
You are an mBIT coach.
I'm an mBIT coach.
Yes, thank you. Sally, welcome.
Sorry, just unmuting myself there. I'm in Dublin in Ireland. And yeah, I did the initial training with Reb, Mark and Bernie, and then I reviewed a second time with Bernie and Mark. So, but I haven't been coaching, what will I say, I've done some peer coaching, but not with clients who are not familiar with them. But in terms of the highest expressions, it's really the positivity of it, I think, that I like the best. That it's there's something very pure about it, and very
She's still there? She's free. No?
no.
No. Let's stop then.
No.
We lost you then.
Did I disappear? I'm sorry,
did
my
disappear.
connection is a bit shaky
Yeah.
this evening.
Yeah.
I hopefully I'm back now. But yeah, the highest expressions. I love the positivity of it, and the way that they're all weaved together to create kind of congruence and authenticity. And there's nowhere else, I think, in life where I can go into that space where I'm finding out what's in what each of the brains want, and bringing them all together in that really beautiful way.
So what we thought we would do today was to obviously unpack what highest expressions is, and start by and then go through each of the competencies and explore those. So if we start by talking about highest in expression, what does that mean? A bit further.
It may be useful to think about what's lowest expression compared to
yeah.
highest expression.
Yeah, because we've kind of covered that a little bit. Yeah. So what would be the lowest then? That's a better question, Josh.
What are we referring to with highest? What's highest all about?
I love the plain English, what's your best self?
Yeah. There's something about, what's the most best, the term I tend to use a little bit is optimal. What's the most optimal way of moving forward? So I think, highest is really good because it's about what's best, what's optimal, what's going to be the easiest, wisest way to move forward. Because you can be aligned and congruent, but you can do the lowest expression of yourself. You can be congruently angry, you can be congruently and aligned and depressed, and your whole being can be really pissed off and angry. Yeah. That's not the highest, is it?
Yeah.
That's the lowest.
That's not being your optimal self, is it?
Yeah, it's not being your optimal self, the most generative, the most, giving, the most, adding to the world. So I think it's worthwhile to think about highest and what it actually means, because it wasn't something I'd really considered and thought and unpacked until I reread the book. So I think it's really,
and then when Josh and I were preparing for this call, it was quite insightful just bouncing those ideas off each other. So for me, the highest expressions is actually being truly authentic to who I am, and expressing that internally for myself, but also externally as that expression. Yeah.
And that's, you know, you touched on now the second part of the term expression. You know, why do you think we refer to it as highest expression and not just highest thoughts or highest feelings? Because you could very easily think compassion, oh, that's a feeling I do, but not think of it as an expression. So what do you think the distinction between calling it a highest expression is compared to maybe a highest nice thought?
The highest nice thought could be just something that you keep telling yourself and not do anything with it.
Yeah, there's a real doing component to expression, isn't there?
Such a distinction there.
Yeah, it's about, you know, if we get all internally aligned, get everything there, how do we then leverage all this internal stuff that we've got and actually do something with it? You know, no amount of just being aligned is going to help go out and make a difference in your life, in the life of people around you, and also your clients. You know, they probably have a bunch of nice thoughts, but are they expressing themselves in the most optimal way for them? If they're coming to you, they're probably not. And that's part of what coaching helps on some level, is to help people get in touch with a more optimal, more resourceful, more way of being for them, so they can express it and do something with it.
Sarah's just saying here, she's having unstable internet, so she's just written in here, the expression contains action and an action component as well.
Action component, yeah. And I think that's one of the things I love about highest expression is, you know, in the world of personal development, there's so much out there that's about, you know, let's have nice thoughts, but it's the expression that makes a difference.
Absolutely.
There's an exercise in one of the workbooks.
I think we said it was the facilitator's guide, Josh.
I might have put the wrong facilitator's workbook. I think it's on page 115. And in the actual workbook, the one that you give your clients, 118. There's a little thing there, just a little scale of, you know, might be able to see a bit of the concept there. Just, you know, rate yourself. So I'd encourage, you know, might be a useful activity to start with clients to explore with them. As, you know, where do you rate yourself on your levels of being able to do compassion in this context, 0 to 10?
And I think also, Josh, it's worth unpacking what compassion is.
Yeah. So
because is compassion, we have sympathy, empathy, and compassion. What's the difference between the three of those?
Yeah. Great question, because often people use the terms interchangeably, but it's through unpacking it you start to get some more refined distinctions. So,
absolutely.
What would be your thoughts? What would come to mind if a discussion around what's the difference between sympathy, empathy, and compassion?
And welcome, Colette.
Yes. And I'm just going to go let the cat in so it stops scratching at my door.
So let's unpack what compassion is. What does that mean to people, as opposed to sympathy and empathy? If we start with sympathy, what is sympathy? What does that mean to you? Because there's a distinct difference between all three of them. Anyone?
Sarah's got in the chat that sympathy is about feeling sorry for someone. It's actually just sharing the feeling.
Yeah.
You're sad, so now I'm sad.
Yeah. Whereas empathy is really about understanding and acknowledging the pain that somebody is going through. And then compassion, what would anyone say the difference is between, again, with compassion?
So I guess compassion is noticing and feeling into it and then actually doing something about it.
Yeah, yeah. How can I help to alleviate your pain? Or how can I share with that with you? Yeah.
And I think, you know, the important part of compassion is it's the let me help do something. There's an active component. So while we're talking compassion heart-based, there's a bit of gut stuff happening because it's about doing. It's about an action.
Whereas the other two aren't that.
Yeah.
Compassion is actually, I want to do something, gut-based. I want to do something and take action so that I can help you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yes, and sometimes, you know, true compassion is that tough love, is that, you know, letting them fall so they can learn their lesson.
Yeah. So anyone who has teenagers, you'll understand what that means.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of letting your child, you know, that they're going to stuff up with something, but hey, you've got to do that. You've got to take that action to learn that from that.
So I think, yeah, it's a really important thing to think about with compassion. It's that expression of, you know, someone else's pain is also part of your pain because you're all part of the one system. So if you can help alleviate their pain and suffering, you can help them operate more wisely in the system, and you're also operating in the system that is society. So it's going to add to the niceness of being involved in that one system. So I think that's an important distinction. Compassion's about taking action to easing pain or suffering and adding value. See, the other question that's worth unpacking is what would you say the difference between smart or wise compassion and dumb compassion is? Because we can do dumb compassion.
I guess wise compassion is seeing, as you said, sometimes tough love and seeing what is best for them instead of imposing what it would mean for you. And dumb love could, as you said, could be just trying to be the fixer and do things according to your map.
Yeah. You know, running around just fixing everything isn't really going to long-term help them. You know, if someone's got a bunch of pain and you go, don't worry about it, I'll just go and fix everything. Let me just fix everything for you. Well, it might feel nice. Are you actually setting them up for success?
Well, it's disempowering them as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
By thinking they need fixing and that, you know, they can place that into someone else, give the power to someone else and just sit back.
Yep. And what happens when they enter a similar context next time and you're not there? Are they resourced up and skilled up enough to do that? No. You know, I always like the term for dumb compassion. You set up, you know, that could be a codependency. Go and doing everything for someone and then they're dependent on you to help them through that. Where wise compassion is about actually, what's the smartest way to do this? What's the wisest way to do this? And I guess if we bring it back to a coaching context, with clients or, you know, maybe yourself, and you to reflect on some of when we get stuck, do you think there might be times where clients could maybe do with a little bit more self-compassion maybe? Because I think that's from my experience is, you know, one of the stuckness that some people easily find themselves in is, oh, I've got to be awesome and I'm not awesome. So therefore, if I go and do this and I fail, then I'm no good and I'm terrible and, you know, I have to be perfect all the time. Or they're busy looking in their past going, I've done all this really dumb stuff and then I'm no good, I'm terrible. That's about actually have a bit of compassion for yourself. You've actually done really well. You did the best you could with what you had. You know, don't have to be the mark.
Perfectionism and it then takes you into procrastination.
Yeah.
Makes me think of the term learned helplessness, which often gets applied in workplaces. You know, when someone goes through a repeatedly either difficult or stressful situation and they kind of get to the point where they go, well, there's no point trying because I can't do anything. If you're not empowering them to take that action or make the change, there's a risk that you're kind of pushing them into that learned helplessness where it kind of gets so bad they even stop trying.
Yeah.
And then they're just expecting you to do whatever it is you do. They don't even try for themselves. So you've totally and utterly disempowered them. And I think we see that quite a lot in workplaces under kind of constant transitional change work, where people get to the point where they just go, I'm out of here.
Yeah. What's the point? Yeah.
it gets too hard to try and get anything shifted. So,
Yeah.
so I think, you know, when you're working with clients and you're exploring compassion, these are some really important distinctions to explore and help them think about and feel into how they might be able to apply this in the context that they're working. Because the beautiful thing is when they apply it in one context and start building that skill, it just naturally flows over to other contexts.
For me, just with clients in the past, if they can't feel the compassion for themselves, I've asked them, you know, can you remember a time perhaps with a child or a family member, and get them to bring that feeling and say, well, you know, how would it feel if you actually did that for yourself?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think someone said before, I think it was Miriam said, touched on an important point. So many of us have spent our lives stuck in our head that it's difficult for clients to get down to that space of their heart, to have that self-compassion. So for some people, it's a whole new concept of actually doing that. Yeah. Now, just also too, just for reference for people, on page 234 of the book is where it talks a lot about compassion, connecting to compassion.
So yeah,
it's a reference for people.
Yep, great exercises there that might be useful for a client if they're struggling with this compassion and connecting to it. You can guide them through that exercise.
Yeah, and we all need some self-compassion, particularly in the world right now. Yeah. So if we move on then to creativity, what does that mean for people? How do we express creativity?
Through ideas and actions.
Yeah. And when we're working with clients, sometimes that creativity can be resourceful, it can be unresourceful, because they're in their head and they're telling themselves all the stories of why things won't work, they're not good enough, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. All those, you know, the monkey on the back shoulder telling you all those things, going back to Josh, what he said before, the procrastination and perfectionism. And then which leads us into the action that they're taking in highest expressions. Yeah, so has anybody got any experiences with that they'd like to share? Or comments on that? To take them to that highest expression where it's in a positive frame.
I guess for me, just just reframing, you know, with their stories and having them acknowledge that they are all stories, and you know that, you know, we're looking at from this point forward. So really get them to acknowledge. And I physically actually got a client to remove the story and do what she needed to do. So she actually threw it off a cliff, and then she felt a lot better. And then we put the head on and the shoulders on. Yeah, she's extremely head based. So, but it was very powerful. And then she said she could actually feel the difference.
Yeah, I had one like that, and we put it on a plane and we sent it to somewhere she knew she was never ever going to go, in a part of the world that was so remote that she could never get it back. Yeah.
And I think that the bit that I love about those scenarios is it just shows that we all are creative. We cannot not be creative. Where you know, I think it's part of human nature. You know, you look through history, you know, all the great examples of people expressing their creativity. We've had creativity as part of being a human for so long. It's just that sometimes clients are using their creativity unresourcefully to think about all the crappy stuff that's going to happen. And sometimes it's about just actually, let's directionalize it by how can you ease pain and suffering from the heart, to go actually from that perspective, with that orientation, how do we, you know, let's use our creativity to come up with how can we do that even more wisely. And the bit that a bit about creativity that, as I was rereading the book, kind of went, oh, that's really cool, is it's the creating, it's how we create our experience. You know, our moment-to-moment experience is created through our thoughts. So they're all coming together there. So, you know, some of the sayings you hear about, you know, we create our reality. I believe it points towards our head-based creativity, and sees the head doing all this bunch of thoughts to creating our moment-to-moment subjective experience. And often clients are doing it not integrated with the other intelligences. They're just running amok.
Yeah, so they're just stuck running a loop.
Yeah.
The same story over and over. Yeah.
Yeah. So and when they get creative, you open up choice for them. Because people often feel stuck when they have limited choice. I have to do it this way. My only response in this context is this. Creativity starts opening up choice. Could do this and could do that and could do this. And that's where freedom comes from. And that's part of what we're helping clients to connect with. And part of the impact of, when they start using their head brain to their highest expression of them, they can tap into this creativity more easily.
Yeah.
There's a beautiful comment there from Sarah about
new world.
There's a beautiful comment from Sarah about changing the questions that she asked. She says, one of the most powerful shifts my clients experience is when they change the type of questions they ask themselves. Instead of asking, why is it happening to me? I have them reframe it and ask, how is this happening for me? Which puts them into a mind of curiosity, and then creativity begins to flow. Questions like, what are you not yet seeing? Or what have you not noticed? Or if it was somebody else in the same situation, what might they be aware of that you're not aware of, can open up the bounds of the story that can feel so fixed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
curiosity. Being very creative in how us as coaches, how we ask those questions with our clients. Yeah. It opens up a whole world of possibilities for them.
And curiosity is such a great state to get people into, so they get curious about what's going on there, because through that curiosity you can leverage that into creativity.
Kind of reminds me back to what you said right at the beginning though, Josh, that these three kind of work in tandem with each other, and you kind of can't do the highest of one without the others. So in order to be really creative and think outside the box and plan to do something radically different, that takes huge courage. So you need all three of them in place to be at highest expression. You can't just do one of them. Like, you can't just go and do exquisite compassioning without creativity and courage. It doesn't work. By default, like you said, you need the action taking of gut to be able to do compassioning. So it truly is that kind of higher integration of the three. We separate them to help us understand them, but this is where the system comes back as one system.
That's that, the first part of the word creativity is create, and you need to do something to create. And often to do something requires courage.
And the feeling as well. You've got to be able to feel it to really get into that creative.
Yeah.
And often that feeling is allowing yourself to do that, to do what it is that you want to do, to give yourself permission to take that action.
And when fear comes in that space, I just, I go back to, do you know the difference between fear and excitement? Being a smile, and I get them smiling, and then it's, the excitement comes, and it just reframes it in that space as well.
I was on a leadership conference. I was on a leadership conference yesterday, and a guy was a big wave surfer. And had a really nasty accident a few years ago. I heard him talk a few years ago. He was told he was never going to do surfing again, let alone big wave surfing again. And he had to learn to overcome the fears. So not only physically and technically did he have to kind of relearn how to surf, but he showed this bizarre video of how he's learned to do that. And he goes in a free diving pool with a free diver, and they wrestle at the bottom of the pool. So the free diver, who can hold his breath for infinitely longer than the big wave surfer, his job is to keep him down, and the surfer's job is to get up and overcome that panic, so that when he's in a big surf moment and he might get knocked off or he might get knocked under, he's already taught his body to overcome the fear response. It was quite amazing listening to him, and I kind of made me think, me and clients, what is it you want to do that you would be prepared to go and fight at the bottom of a free dive pool to overcome the feelings that might stop you doing it. So much easier sometimes just to let the feelings go, oh, all right, then I won't bother.
Yeah.
It's not that important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'd be letting them go as opposed to fighting at the bottom of a pool.
Comes back to that need for heart, you know, the need for heart first, in terms of being so clear on what matters enough to you. That leads the whole thing of then the how, the creativity at head level, and then the courage it takes at gut level to do whatever it takes. It you know, maybe a challenge to some of us in terms of what is it that we want, and are we using the processes that we know so well on ourselves to get whatever it is that you want in a way that is aligned with embraining, that comes from a heart of love and compassion. Some people, I think, use the term, oh, you know, that would be dumb compassion, as an excuse for being blatantly horrible to somebody. That's not wise compassion. Compassion always comes from love. Do no harm, always. If you're doing harm and causing hurt, that's not wise compassion. It's just being bloody nasty.
Yeah. So in talking about, then that leads us into the next one of courage and the courageous action and being in the face of fear. So is it about getting rid of the fear, or like Suzanne was just saying, it's just learning a different way of approaching when you are in the face of fear? Yeah?
If you get rid of the fear, is it still fear?
Well, that's right. That's a good
But without
point.
fear, we can't experience excitement. So that's what I say to clients. We can remove the fear. Oh, yeah. So that would mean that the polarity, you could never experience excitement. Oh, no, I don't want that. So just, yeah, pointing out the polarity.
Yeah, it's so true. Like, I think part of the fear is part of what we want to do and what clients want to do is they want to learn new ways of being, grow in what they do. That's got to be unknown. They're going to have to do something they don't normally do. Guess what? The very nature of doing that is a bit of fear. And I think you can easily, you know, sometimes it's easy to dive down the rabbit hole of, I want to eliminate fear. But I don't know whether that's the wisest rabbit hole to go down, because it's always going to be there. That's the nature of doing something. It's not something to try and push away. It's something to embrace and kind of go, fear just lets me know that I'm just about to do something I've never done before and I could level up. So often it's about helping clients to have the courage to push through, to act in spite of the fear, because it's something that's so important to me. Like, not acting would not be me. It's so important to me at a heart level. I want to ease this pain and suffering. I want to do the compassionate way of doing it. Let's get creative doing it, but let's take the guts to take that step and push through the uncertainty.
And often it's about helping our clients be comfortable with sitting in that fear and knowing that you're taking that action, because as Josh said, whenever you're doing something for the first time, there will be always that element of fear. So you could have somebody be telling you that they really want something, but are they taking action because they're so stuck there in their fear? So it's about helping them move through that so that they can take the action that they need to take and be comfortable in that space.
Thinking about what's some of the most highest joys and highest great feelings that people have in their life, what's happened just before it? There's been some challenges, there's been some stuff they've had to have some courage to overcome. I was talking to a friend yesterday and we were talking about courage, and he was sharing a story of he used to play footy, and one game of footy he was really badly hurt. He hurt his back, he thought he might have been paralysed, and so it was a really scary moment. 12 months later, that game with the same team came up again, and he was throwing up. He was really sick to his stomach, and so not surprising, all gut stuff. But he goes, you know what? My job is to go out there and protect my teammate. He was a big fella, so he was kind of the wall at the front. So he's like, my job is to go out there and protect my team, protect them. They need me out there. Keyed into heart, you know, it's that social connection. And he says he played the best game of his entire footy career. So it was through pushing through that fear, stepping into courage, you know, compassion to, you know, ease the suffering of his teammates so they don't get belted by the other team. So he keyed into the heart, and he played his best game of footy. So it was the fear which helped him step up, helped bring out the most optimal, highest expression of him as a footy player. When he was telling me that, I thought, oh, I'm going to steal that on tomorrow's call when we talk about courage. But I think that's part of what we want to help clients to do, is to step up and bring the most optimal self. So they need to have some courage to take that leap of faith.
Yeah.
And it's that meaningful stuff, you know. It's that kind of, you know, I don't get horribly excited when I decide to go make a cup of coffee. It doesn't involve fear, you know. There's no challenge in that. It's just doing, you know. But it's when it requires courage to act, courage to do it. It's then, once I've done it, it's like, wow, that's really cool. And it's part of what we're helping clients to step into as well. And you know, it's that action, that's that courageous action, which is also integrated with heart of compassion and creativity of the head. Because, you know, if you fuel your action by, you know, anger, no one's going to get me, I'm Mel out to win, I'm going to protect everyone. And they take courage, because, you know, it takes courage to go to war, but it's not wise, is it? It's highly sympathetic dominant. It's that fight and flight. You know, imagine if they decide to go, well, how can we do this while also integrating compassion and creativity? Be different outcomes, different thoughts. And that's the power of integrating. And, you know, when they all work together, it's this new way of being, new thoughts, new experiences, new decisions, new actions that come only from when they work together, integratedly. I think that's one of the powers of highest expressions.
Listening to you as well, it's a beautiful kind of reminder that as we do that, what we're doing is changing our language into ontological language at this stage. And so it's not only doing courage, it's being courage. So you're really starting to shift round to them owning it, holding it at such a deep level across all of the brains, that it's shifting into that deepest sense of identity, which is even more powerful than going and doing something. So I think, you know, if I think of crazy things I've done in my life, like a bungee jump, when you stand on that shelf, yes, you need courage to jump. But it's not, I at that moment didn't contemplate it was something about who I was. It was just something I wanted to do. It was almost like a tick box, you know, 25 things you got to do before you die kind of thing. Might not be on everyone's tick list, but it was on my tick list.
Not on mine.
But when I think about highest expression of courage, it's so much more than that. It's so much more than just doing something scary. It's about becoming somebody who is driven by this intention at heart level to do good, to serve, to love, whatever. So I don't know if I'm expressing it very well, but as you were speaking, I was thinking that shift of language we move to at highest expression when we're doing the doing and the being. There's such a beautiful art in that as an mBIT coach, of how you feed that back into somebody. We kind of say highest expression's the icing on the cake and the cherry on top. Part of the way we do that is through skillful language and understanding the deep integrated nature of not only the three with each other, but the three to the very being of the person that you're coaching, if that makes sense.
It's not who we are isn't, you know, when we do this, it's not just the sum of head, heart, gut. It's you know, when we express that, what are we truly expressing? It's us. and our way of being. You know, it's that beingness that's being expressed. And, you know, by shifting that language, as Suzanne mentioned, shifting that language, we start to shift and start to weave in that this isn't just something to do, it's something to be, because it's you that's expressing your compassioning and creativity, and it's about a way of being when you turn up.
And I guess, yeah, doing, we can choose to do or not to do, but once we envision that we're being something, it tends to be more, this is who I am, as opposed to that's what I choose to do. And when I do that, well, even for myself, it's like, yeah, I am this, I am, rather than I get to do that. So yeah, it's very powerful.
Because, you know, when the rubber hits the road out in the world, when you've got that moment to make a decision, don't really have the time to do all the conscious stuff of this, that. You might just have a bit of a key, and next thing you know, bam, your way of being is shifted to the way it was aligned and congruent and integrated. And it's about beingness. And, you know, by artfully using your language, you're setting the client up for that way of being in that moment.
I guess being provocative. No, not that I would ever go there. Not that I would ever go there.
Sympathetic stimulation.
As an mBIT coach, how much do you express and explore that with your clients in a consenting way when you take them on as a client? Do they know that that's where you're going, that you're working at that being ontological level? Or do you, you know, I don't know, as a client, they might come to you for, oh, I've got a difficulty with a colleague at work, or I've got a decision to make. They might come with a very functional, task-based type issue. How do you get that across to them, that the option is there if they want it, to go really deep and ontological and actually change who they're being? Or do you not? Do you just presupposition that you do, but maybe you don't?
Good question.
I think for me, that's I personally find that as a tough message to market. You know, people want a bit more tangible, but through my conversations with clients, it's kind of realize how you do this. Probably do it in other areas of your life. Once you've connected the pattern, you can kind of go, so is there any other areas in the life you might lead with the head and go to the gut, leave the heart out? And what would be really cool is once it's worked in one way, one context, it'd be amazing to see how it shifts over to other contexts. So probably explore it that way, not as explicit as let's change your way of being in the world.
Yeah, I think it's in the art of the questions, the types of questions that you ask clients, and then helping them see that there's actually a pattern going on, and how they can, as Josh just said, they're doing something at work, or they're 9 times out of 10 they're going to be doing that sort of thing in their personal life as well, and seeing that what the change is that they need to make.
So again, kind of flicking it straight back at you, being controversial, you could still coach a pattern at a functional level. And some people, as Sarah's beautifully said, that might be all they want.
Yeah. That's
all they're interested in. They want to deal with whatever it is, stress in this environment, or relationship issues that are both at work and home, or whatever. Yeah, for me, there was, when I was a kind of new coach, a bit of a challenge to at what point do you introduce that deeper level, and how do you introduce it, and even invite that if they want to go there, they can.
It's giving them really an option, isn't it?
Mm.
I guess it could also be a very good way to market once you've built that rapport, to say, well, you know, not only, you know, you sort of came with this, but how could it look if you were actually able to do that with any decision that came up, or any choice that came up, or so how would it look if you had this tool to be able to do that for everything?
Yeah, which kind of comes back to what I started off to say, is in the art of the questions that you're asking them. Yeah.
Anyone played with it with a real client?
No, I will though. That's on my bucket list now. Thank you, Suzanne.
So not bungee jumping?
Oh, no,
No.
You can come to New Zealand, do a bungee jump. I'll hold the rope.
Oh.
The come to New Zealand part, yes, but no bungee.
I should build it into the next master coach.
I'm just wondering, if you look at the whole process, and since I don't have that much experience outside of the training, wouldn't it be something that comes more natural with this whole process, that people actually do start changing on that level? How can you, if you connect the three brains together, if they're aligned, if they're congruent, and they're part of the and you're getting to this highest expression, how is it possible that people are not going from doing to being?
Nice. So we're back to the presupposition then that everyone who uses the whole roadmap, do we consent all clients to that level of working just because it's an mBIT session? I'm playing with you, but I just...
Do you need their consent?
Oh, okay.
For that level, for that level. They're coming with a problem. They're coming with something practical.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's say I've got a conflict with a colleague at work. I'm your client.
And you want to resolve the conflict.
Yes, I want to be able to be in good relationship at work.
So, and how, at what level would you like to be that? Would you like to just be that? Would you like it to be just a game that you're playing, where you actually want to feel, actually be at the level that you can actually feel completely confident, completely safe with this?
I just want to be able to do my job.
So you like role playing?
No, I want to go in and do my job to the best that I can.
Mm-hmm. But in connection with this client, with this colleague, you're satisfied with just role playing?
No, I don't think I'm role playing. I want to genuinely have no conflict.
So you genuinely want to feel, and you genuinely want to connect with this person?
No, I just want no conflict.
So you're acting, so it's role playing, because you don't want, with role playing, you can just, avoid conflict.
No, I don't want to role play. I want it to be real.
You want it to be real. Good, that's fine. That's enough.
Do you see how hard it could be? In that because we're mBIT coaches, and because we work to the roadmap, we already have a frame of where we're going, which includes going up to highest expression. Now, I know that some people coach and they don't go up to highest expression. They kind of stop at congruence, think they've got a great shift, and they leave it at that. And I think that's you're not giving them the icing on the top and the cherry. And I think there is, for me, an element of consenting about they might be perfectly happy just to feel okay now and walk away and not do that deeper change work on themselves.
So what do you do in that situation?
Oh, that's got to be my classic it depends, right? My non-answer, because it depends on the client and the situation and what they want. But my belief, and it is only my belief, is I can't force people to work at that level on self-development, that it has to be a desire and therefore an element of consenting that goes on. So sometimes I do work with people on a functional level because that's all they want. They're not interested in anything else. Sometimes I had one lady who was a GP referral for stress, and we were dealing with the stress. And when she felt much better, she then said, I'm getting the gist, there's far more to what you do. I want the rest now. So we transitioned across into working at the deeper level.
So she would have sensed that through feeling and through your language. And so I guess it's about the language that we're using as well.
I think also, and particularly in the field of stress and anxiety, until you've got rid of the stress and anxiety, I don't know that you can go deeper.
Yeah.
So maybe it was just a timing process for her, that until she had got rid of the stress and the unhelpful stress and anxiety, that she wasn't even able to consider what other options were.
I have a client, an example of exact that, and that is, I've got a lady that I'm working with at the moment, and she really wants a very functional outcome to this issue for herself, and she does not want to go to gut level. No, I don't want to go there. When we're talking about her identity and who she is and how she shows up in the world, no, she doesn't want to go there. So I'm having to be really creative in the questions that I'm asking her to help her to move past that.
Well,
and she's got to want to do that as well.
Yeah.
She's got to have that permission. Yeah.
You know, it's wholly possible at that point. You go, well, I'll use an NLP technique and I won't go to that level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because by default, to do mBraining, gut's involved.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think for her, it's very much what I'm working on with her is helping her to feel completely safe in where she is, because that is such an important point. And I'm suspecting there's, you know, other reasons why there obviously is for her not feeling safe and why she doesn't want to go to that level. But as Suzanne's quite correctly pointing out, is that, well, does she really want to go there to that space? And if she doesn't, well, you know, obviously as a coach, you can't push her to go there.
I mean, please don't hear anything that I'm saying is right or wrong or you should or whatever. I just raised the question to get you thinking for yourselves. Do we always go up the roadmap to highest expression? If we do we consent our clients to do that or not? That's your choice as a coach, not for me to say that you should or you shouldn't. I just wanted you to think about, at a conscious level, be very deliberate about the choices you make.
It's almost as if you're suggesting that we might need to consider contracting differently, because to bring in the word consent is a whole different thing. What I always do is, I haven't stopped doing it, but I sort of have. I don't really offer one-off sessions now. I mean, I wouldn't turn it down, I don't think, but I really encourage a journey. And so I always encourage people to look at the website first and say this is a very deep coaching process and it works at the level of identity. And then I just leave that there hanging in the air, really. And then, you know, some people will look at the website and get a sense of things and say it completely speaks to them, or it doesn't. You know, so first they'll get a sense of what mBraining is about. Then I always do a 30-minute discovery call, and I wouldn't, you know, I would always do that now. It's so valuable to do a free 30-minute conversation to get more of a sense of what somebody's looking for, what you can offer. It's really interesting. This morning I was on a networking call for the Therapist Network, and somebody was giving a talk on ontological coaching. But I knew that somebody was somebody I trained 2 years ago. And I thought, this is really interesting. She's calling it ontological coaching rather than mBIT coaching. Whereas nearly all the other mBIT coaches I've trained, me included, call it mBIT coaching, because I sort of want what Grant called it in there, but it doesn't mean so much to other people. And as soon as we got on the call, she just said, oh, by the way, Liz, it isn't mBIT. And I thought, well, it doesn't matter if it is or it isn't. And then during the call, I went, oh, Davina, it also is mBIT. But what was lovely, you know, and it was said respectfully, but what was lovely is that she's taken that position and she's positioning herself in a market where she's going to work with, I think, mostly women who are transitioning from therapy to coaching, to do that deep ontological work.
I think we're in really interesting times. If you went back 15 years ago and you looked at what coaching was, there was quite a narrow funnel of what coaching was, and anything else was therapy. And now that, to me, that it's just not so clearly delineated, which I think puts pressure on us as coaches who go beyond the traditional head-based process-driven coaching. It gives a huge responsibility for us to be very clear about where we're going and why in order to keep our clients safe.
And that comes into scope of practice.
Yeah, so I guess that's why I asked the question, because that's something that I kind of hammer home in my trainings, because you do occasionally get people who get so excited and they think they can go out and do, you know, all sorts straight off with just a 4-day mBIT coach cert. Oh, I'll go and treat addictions. I'll go and do, you know, whatever. And maybe they can if they have other qualifications. But if you've just done the 4-day coach cert, that absolutely is not your scope of practice, not safe.
It's interesting though, because Grant's put addiction in the mBIT toolkit. So we're about to get to that in our book club.
Yeah.
So when I first saw that in the mBIT toolkit, I was like, oh, that's interesting.
And
I put compulsions in there as well, which come under a therapeutic scope normally.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, he was very much an advocate for Mary O'Malley. And if you've read Mary O'Malley's book, The Gift of Our Compulsions, what she's talking about there is far wider than drugs, alcohol, gambling addictions. She's talking about addiction to patterns of ways of doing life that could be, I don't know, eating or reacting a certain way, or so she's using a far wider scope. And I know he really related to her, and I'll give you a bit of a secret insight that nobody else knows yet, and it's being recorded so people will, but there you go. You know that I'm writing at the moment mBIT Advancing, and I contacted Mary O'Malley because I heard her give an interview where she was talking about being interviewed by Grant.
Oh, cool.
And I thought, oh, I'm just going to do it. Hang it, I'm going to do it. And I contacted her and asked if she'd write the
courage.
Yeah, plucked up the courage and asked her if she'd write the foreword for the book.
Cool.
So she's replied, we're in communication. She wants to see the whole draft before she commits, but she may, touch wood, be writing that forward, which would just be beautiful to make those links back to him. But yeah, I just know if you're interested in that field, I wholly recommend her book, The Gift of Our Compulsions. It's a brilliant read and really pushed my mindset about what addictions and compulsions were way wider than anything I had held in my frame beforehand, and made me think, oh, I've probably got a few of those then, patterns that I'm so kind of attached to that I don't want to let go of. And you know, and the whole book is the gift of our compulsions. It's all about what they're bringing and what benefits and secondary gain, and there's no point just taking one of those away without replacing what you're getting out of it in some other way, a healthier, wiser way. So in that respect, under that frame, I can wholly see why that fits within ontological coaching and embraining. I'm absolutely sure Grant wasn't trying to say that in 4 days you could go and be an addictions therapist.
Yeah. But you're quite right what you're saying, though. There is such a fine line now between, you know, coaching and therapy, and sometimes that line does get blurred.
Yeah. In the next level program, we spend the whole month talking about what is coaching, your philosophy of coaching, the being of coaching, who you are as a coach. And I think we don't often stop and really do that for ourselves and be really clear where we are positioning ourselves, which impacts on everything. It impacts on whether we consent. It impacts on what sort of clients we pick up. It impacts on our marketing. So, well, you know, well, we obviously think it's well worth, we spend the whole of the first month of Next Level looking at that for people.
This conversation makes me want to go and reread the paperwork that we send out for the Coach Cert training in terms of the word consent. Because I don't know that I've seen it on there. Maybe I have. I mean, we've got our disclaimers, we've got that, but the word consent is quite different.
So are you talking about the people who come on the training?
Yeah.
So the people who come on the training know they're coming on a training to work with 3 brains.
Yeah.
So there's implied consent there. But the client that just comes to see a coach, in inverted commas, because there's 101 ways of being a coach, I wonder if they do really know what they're coming for. I know a lot of my clients don't. I'd love to be in the office of the GP that sends people to me. I often ask the people who come through the GP, so what did Peter say about me then? And they kind of say something like, you know, my friend, you might think some of the things she does is a bit weird, but well worth going and seeing her. And these people still come and see me. It's like amazing, really.
Even though you might
a quote you want for a testimonial you want on your website.
I know. But, you know, if somebody hears you talk at an event or a network event, or you go in and do some business consultancy and then they approach you as a coach, I just thought it was worth throwing it open is, do people know what they're coming for? And if they come for a very functional thing, how do you transition across or invite across? So one of the questions I will sometimes throw up, and then it comes from someone who coached me years ago, is it okay if I ask you a seatbelt question? Like, i.e., we're going to go deep and you need to be, you know, seatbelt in, buckled up. But I ask their permission. Or I might say, is it okay if I just go controversial for a minute? And they kind of know they're going to be challenged. I feel like if they say yes, I've got their consent. If I just dived in with a question around identity level without kind of setting that up, well, I might just lose rapport, I guess. But I might also set off a stress response where they go, I'm not going there, that's none of your business. I'm here about stress at work. Talk about, you know, don't talk about who I am.
So it could take them, absolutely take them in a different direction that you don't want to take them.
Well, we might want to take them there, but they might not want to go there.
Well,
yet. I mean, Sarah, a while ago kind of went, and remember, we need the client to feel safe in going deeper. Absolutely 100%. Anyone who's done Master Coach, A&S is safety. That's the roadmap is on. If you haven't got a safe platform, they're not going to open up to you or go deeper. Anyway, that was an interesting tangent I just brought in. I do apologize, guys. I'll shut up.
Got all the gears churning.
So does anybody have any questions on any of that? Brian, do you have any questions, Miriam?
You can almost see them forming, can't you?
You can. You can see the cogs turning.
Go on, go for it, Brian.
No, I'm just really happy that I was here tonight, because there is so many interesting things that are being said, but it does make it makes a lot of sense. And actually, at some points, I was writing some stuff down, and then Josh was saying something, or Colleen was saying, I say, oh, I just wrote that down, because it does make sense. So the whole package of doing things, the most interesting thing at the end is because of your question, Suzanne, and it's I'm realizing that as a coach, I would love to get people to go to that identity place, but it's I also know what you mean by if you need their consent, because otherwise it won't happen. But we know it's the place where the changes really happen, basically.
Yeah.
Or not basically, it's where it really happens. So
yeah. Because we know change isn't integrated until it's integrated at gut level.
Yeah, and that's why I was naming it. Okay, so if it's not at that level, it's just going to be some kind of a role play. and you can help people role play, but and yeah, there was just one thing that Joss was saying at the beginning, which I really liked. And I wrote it down somewhere, but I can't find it right now. Anyway, Josh, Colleen, I love what you did tonight, and I'm really happy we went through this whole highest expression, because it does make me look at it in a different way, even, and it's been a while, but I'm really happy that we've done this tonight.
Awesome. I'm glad you got some insights and value from it.
Oh,
One thing we haven't mentioned nearly all the way through is the lovely word denominalizing. Because this is where you really would start to bring in the denominalizations. So even highest expressioning rather than highest expressions, couraging, compassioning, creativitying is always harder to say that one. But that just links with the ontological nature of it. It becomes a verb, it becomes a doing of, rather than just a entity in its own right. It brings it alive by putting it into the verb form. And then you can begin to ask the questions about how are you doing compassioning? How are you being courageous? So I'm surprised we went all evening talking highest expressions without denominalizing come up. But it has now.
Yeah, thank you. So anybody else?
It's another good one with clients, isn't it? Because if you start talking like that to clients, they think you're barking mad. So you've got to pace and lead across to how do you get the essence of denominalization across without them thinking that you know you're not speaking English.
But you're on some other planet.
Another planet. My husband absolutely hates it when I talk denominalizations in conversation. Can't bear it. It's not English. It's not grammatically correct, apparently.
Well, he is a teacher.
He's a teacher. Science teacher as well, right?
I can't help myself not using it a lot of the time now. I'm sure people go, what? I know.
Yeah. But doing it maybe with a bit of humour or a gentle way into it.
I always think, if someone goes, gee, that's not, you use this word a bit different. I kind of think, you think I do it? I know this one bloke who uses it on every second word.
Yeah, and we can get away with it within the community and kind of smile. But we do need to just consider that some people outside have never heard of the whole concept and might be a bit shocked.
That's exciting too, though. It gets them curious, doesn't it?
It does.
Yes.
Curious singing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I'm just thinking reflection after the 4 days on the CERT course that I suppose there's so much in those 4 days, and I suppose so much learning has happened through all of these discussions and breaking it down, and that really, I suppose, pacing yourself with your client, it's not as simple as just going straight up the roadmap, and there's so many layers, and the starting and where to stop and pacing yourself, and that it could take a long time rather than one session to do all this. So it's just a real it's a real eye-opener in that you just have to really be present to where your client is at and stop at the point where you feel it's just not going or going too deep and they're not ready. It's really where they are.
And remember, the gut's got a longer dwell time. So as soon as you're working at that level, they need time and space to let it kind of digest and integrate, and for them to fully feel that they've absorbed it so that they can then understand it. It does take time.
I think that just to, on the back of what Liz just said before, that comes into beautifully of taking that client on a journey rather than just one session, of them having several sessions and then integrating and obviously aligning through that time. Yeah. Does anybody else have any questions or comments or anything else?
Do most people take their clients to highest expression? I mean, I'm just curious if we was to do some research on this.
Whoa, the research word.
Yes, I'm surprised actually. That's a very good point, Liz. I'm surprised, Suzanne, hearing you say that people don't take their clients to highest expression. Really? Oh.
Yeah. So again, one of the privileges of being on the next level is I get to listen into other people coaching and then giving them feedback. And yeah, the roadmap in the early days for some of those people was not really followed, and highest expression didn't come in. And also that final phase of asking what wisdom has emerged, which is such a beautiful kind of confirmation for them, because often it's a metaphor or an image that makes absolute sense to them. You wouldn't have dreamed it up in a million years, but it makes absolute sense to them. And yeah, so do most? I've no idea, Liz. I can't comment on the 2,500 people that have trained. But I know that for some, they get so caught in the communication and the congruence, and then building a goal or an outcome that they set a plan for, that they stop there. And the way I kind of liken it, are you familiar with the Systema? Because in the UK we would have had Tupperware pots, but you know the pots that click over? Mm-hmm. So it's a bit like having a bowl of soup with a Systema lid on that you haven't clicked. That it may well keep the soup in the bowl, but if you go on a rocky journey, the soup might still spill out. So unless you've clicked it into place at that highest expression and consciously and deliberately focused on the wisdom that is what they're going to use to take forward and directionalize moving forward, then you haven't clicked it all into place, and people, I think, can go backwards. And we've seen this in trainings when at the end of you know, day 3, you've got your client, your peer client into congruence, and then you go home and you come back and you do highest expression. How many people are out of congruence again overnight? So yeah, I don't know how many do, how many don't. However, I know some don't or didn't. They do now, the ones I've been working with. But I'm guessing, therefore, there will be others that don't either see the need, or they get distracted at setting a goal, or they run out of time, or whatever it is. Could be any number of reasons, or they've forgotten that higher level of the process or the roadmap.
Or the client's reached a point and potentially got an answer of what they want.
Well, and they can perceive it once they get into congruence, they can suddenly feel it's all okay now, right, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
But letting them go at that point is kind of letting them down.
Well, that's interesting, because something I've found myself doing the last few years is not encouraging coaches that I've trained to, I've tried to encourage coaches who were feeling they were doing a poor job at the coaching if they didn't take them to highest expressions. And in a way, you're suggesting that tonight, but I would refer them to the...
Not necessarily in one session, Liz. I don't say you have to do it all in one session.
What I've often said is, it's to the South African coach, Sarah. She did a beautiful, very professional demonstration for mBIT coaches of the process. She didn't go to highest expression because her client's gut wouldn't allow her to, so that's a big factor as well, but it was still a beautiful coaching session. So what I try to say to coaches I train is, we know the full process, and if we can go there, let's do it, you know, please do, you know. But if for whatever reason you're unable to, trust that you're still doing beautiful coaching.
I wholly agree, and I would want to then meet them again to, you know, hopefully over time, take them higher, take them higher, take them higher.
Yeah, that's why the coaching journeys, I think, are really important.
Yeah. And if you've got someone who's not going to one of the brains, of course they can't go to highest expression because it's an integrative process. So until you've got congruence, even communication, if they're not even going to one of the brains, you've not even got communication.
Yeah.
So yeah, you could do 3, 4, 5 beautiful sessions at communication only level.
Yeah.
Before you can then move up. Much better to do more sessions and get the communication than try and force it through, because if you force it through and you've not got communication or congruence, you're not going to go up that roadmap.
But it was
integrative.
It was becoming a block for the coaches that their coaching was poor or rubbish or something less of if they weren't going all the way up the roadmap.
No, I would say good on them for recognizing they're not ready to go up there yet and to come back and do more work lower down. Yeah, beautiful. A couple of comments from Sarah coming in.
Yes, I was just seeing that. I was about to say that. One of the comments that Sarah just said is of making sure that you're contacting with clients within 72 hours of their session with you, which is a very good point. And she says, I did have a client once who refused to go to gut and she called it nonsense and walked away.
Not ready.
Good guts, yeah.
Yeah. Actually, that would be a lovely provocative reframe, wouldn't it be? Funny because it's your gut that's making that decision.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Wow, that's been a great session. Has everyone got some things out of that, some learning points out of that? Although certainly I have. And I would say just further to what Josh said at the start of the call, but going through the book again and also buddying up with somebody else, because you're getting different perspectives and you're bouncing those ideas off each other. I know for Josh and I, in preparing for last week's call and this week's call, we've both got so much out of it in doing that. So which probably brings to the next session, and you want someone to volunteer to.
Yeah, I was just looking at dates. So the next one is just a master coach, get rid of that word just. The next session is a master coach session, and it's on the 17th of September at 8 o'clock Auckland time. So if you're a master coach, come and join us for that. And the next one that's all inclusive is on Friday, the 25th of September, again at 8 o'clock Auckland time, which is a early morning on the 25th for UK time, and you can work out your own times across that.
Can you just say that again, the master coach is 17th.
Yeah.
And Auckland time 8 p.m.
Yeah. And then the everybody one is 25th, again at 8 p.m. Auckland time. It's always on the announcements at the top of Facebook page, mBIT Coaches International. So yeah, that one on the 25th, if anyone would like to just facilitate that call. We've just gone all the way up the roadmap. We haven't spent a lot of time at that wisdom step at the top, so we could do a session just on that emergent wisdom bit at the top. I think there's probably enough material there, and a kind of reminder of some of the stuff we've, the fact that it's all integrative, that if you've missed a step, you can't move on. There might be like a kind of summary session of the roadmap. So yeah, if anyone would like to facilitate that, any trainers in particular who, Liz, looking at you, do you fancy facilitating one?
What day of the week is it? I'm childcare Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Oh, no excuse then, it's a Friday.
Of course. And so
you're in, Liz.
It's about facilitating emergent wisdom, talking about what wisdom is and
yeah, and just a kind of summary of, you never, even though we give a title for a session, you never quite know where it's going to go.
Okay.
So don't feel bound by it, but we have just spent the last few going up the roadmap step by step. So we're now at the top. Wisdom, we always say, is not a step that you do, it's something that emerges. But it might be worth a reminder of, how, when you've done that highest expression, how do you ask the question about what wisdom's emerged, or what key learning they've got, or what's their insight now, and what do you then do with that? So around tasking and future pacing and
really about unpacking it all, isn't it?
yeah, but that would be my thoughts. You know, I guess what we've been doing over the last few weeks is saying it's not about my thoughts, and let other people run sessions and it be about what you want it to be about. You know, yeah. So we're putting your name next to 25th?
Okay, cool. I haven't got my diary here. I'm in London, but that's fine. If it's a Friday, it's cool. And can I just say, we've mentioned the mBraining book. Don't forget, we've got the mBIT book club now. And we're just coming to the last chapter of the book. And Miriam's on the call. Hasn't it been wonderful, Miriam? Miriam.
Very good. Very good. Yeah.
There was one chapter that we thought we were going to be living in this chapter for such a long time, but we got so much out of it.
Yep.
It was wonderful. And so we've agreed as a group that people are going to be ordering the coaching workbook and what webinars they need. I will be running the coaching workbook end of this year or beginning of next year, as soon as everyone's got their books in.
Beautiful.
And we decided to run it in the way that we did the first time round, which Josh was on, I think, where we have a group and one of us like you're doing now, one of us facilitates a chapter each time. It's
beautiful.
It's quite hard to prepare that coaching workbook as one person.
Yeah.
And Grant always says that when you teach, you master something. You master it when you teach. So
absolutely.
We're saying pair up, and you're not, you're just facilitating still with us as a group. But I can't stress enough how much I got out of 3 runs of the coaching workbook.
Beautiful.
And I know it'll be new again, so when the trainings start, we're running that again, just to put that out there.
And
thank
Liz,
you so much, Liz, for doing that.
What time do you do that? I think that might have been
well, we tend to get a huge response, and then the response goes down to about a third, and then we get about 10 dedicated folk who really are dedicated, and we then go with that group. So we might put it out at a time, but people don't want to miss a session. So we're just moving from Sunday, which worked in lockdown, but now our Sundays are open and we can get out a bit, and we don't know how long for. So we've just moved it to Tuesday evening, 7 p.m. UK time. But
I know I wanted to start it. When you did start it, it was something like 2 o'clock in the morning here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Go back for a nap afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's dedication, and then there's just, crazy.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was asleep at 2 o'clock.
And, if anyone thinks, oh yeah, I read the book when I did the course, a bit like Josh said, he's reread it and getting loads of stuff out of it. Grant used to say he wrote the book, right? And he reread it and learnt stuff in rereading it. Work that one out, right? Because so much of the stuff that he did was unconsciously competent. He would reread it either with extra learning having gone on in the meantime, and therefore you read it in a different way, or coming back to it over time. So yeah, if it's been a while since you've read the core book, go and reread it again. And especially in the light of these sessions we've done, if you read up the roadmap bit, you will start to realize you thought you knew it, and now there's so much more. Anyone who thinks they know mBIT inside out, they're still on the journey, right? There's so much you can unpack, so much more.
And I would have to say that in with working with Josh, as I said before, but even facilitating these calls, I've just learnt so much in doing that. As Liz was saying, when you're facilitating it, you're getting all the information and going through that again, and then unpacking it to actually facilitate it, which is such an experience.
Yeah,
highly recommend it.
What about the facilitator's book, Suzanne?
Which one?
Facilitator's book, I think it is.
Yeah, so
it just recently got my attention, and I think it was on a meditation on Monday with Dara.
Right.
And someone mentioned it, and I was like, that doesn't sound familiar to me. And
okay, so they come as a pair. The mBIT coaching workbook is effectively the workbook that you give your client, and the mBIT Coaching Facilitators Guide is for you as a coach to have, so that you can then take your coachees through each section. So it has the same material in it, and then what you're looking for underneath.
Oh, because it didn't sound familiar to me, and I was like, what facilitating guide? What are you talking about? But probably because it's not translated into Dutch.
There's no Dutch version yet. Yeah.
So I would find it not surprising that it wasn't mentioned. I can't remember it being mentioned, at least during our training, because the whole training was in Dutch.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's an awful lot of when we first got going, there was the core book, and that's all there was. And now there's a whole raft of books, some of which are functional, like the coaching workbook, others are more to read, theoretical. I wouldn't like to guess what is told at Coach Certs in terms of what of that is passed on as knowledge. That's why we do fairly hefty welcome emails after the Coach Cert, to just let people know what some of the other courses are, some of the other products are, because we know that not all trainers promote all of those products. I suspect the ones that don't promote them have not used them themselves, so they're not in the front of their mind.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, because I regularly run into people in different ways, not just in the mBIT community. It's like, okay, how is your English? Yeah, well, I understand. So for a lot of people, reading these books in English is just not. It's not within their range. So fine, that's absolutely okay. But it is in mine. I can read these books. I mean, it's. So I was like, whoa, okay, this facilitator's guide, I'm really interested in that.
Yeah, I would say get on Liz's journey through that, because it walks you through chapter by chapter. Once you've done it for yourself, it makes so much sense. But the coaching workbook is almost a package of coaching that you could pretty much do with a client and sell as a package ready-made for you.
I'm waiting for mine to arrive. I've got the facilitator's guide, so I think Rosemary is bringing the other one down this weekend.
Lovely. I mean, it is interesting that some clients go, oh, it feels too good to write in, but it is literally a workbook, and it's designed for you to write in your reflections, your learnings as you go through.
So Suzanne, can you take parts of that out for a client, or it should be used as no?
Not really. I mean, that's kind of, dissing Grant really, in terms of what you want to do is make sure that every client has their own book. What I do with all my packages is it's part of my pricing. So they just get a coaching workbook as part of the coaching package, and then everybody gets it.
Yeah, perfect. Okay.
Oh,
That's something.
Colette, I thought your question was about the questions that Grant's put in here. My experience is, on one page, he's put half a dozen questions, and I give my client no more than 2 a week to inquire about themselves.
Okay, yes.
I don't know if that's how your question was.
Yeah, so, but also, just for something, so I didn't know whether we could just take parts of it out, because I haven't received that one yet. So just getting that clarity, so to actually have the workbook for individual clients as well.
Yeah, the idea is not that you have one workbook and you photocopy one chapter and give it to a client.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Okay, it's 9:30. I'm going to go out and get a coffee, because that's what I do in the morning. Lovely to see you all. Thank you hugely for Josh and Colleen, second week running, picking this up, which has been a wonderful break for me, not having to do it, which has been perfect timing for me. And Liz is going to be picking up the next generic one, and we'll look at some level of the top of the roadmap, whatever that looks like. So yeah, it's been lovely having you all here, seeing you all, and go away and ponder some of those questions. Feel free to carry the pondering on Facebook if it's useful. Pose a question or write something up there if you read something that now has a different flavor because you've had this conversation. Let's get some discussion going on that Facebook page too.
And I'm happy to facilitate that session, but if anyone wants to do it with me, you know, if it speaks to somebody and we want to give different perspectives, then that's great as well.
Beautiful.
If someone wants to work with me on it, it'll be even better.
Yeah, anyone willing to do that, let Liz know.
Yeah.
Sorry, Brian, was that a volunteer? No.
Yeah, no, I just said I'll be in touch with you, Elizabeth, because this is really very interesting, and I'd like to know. Just the Tuesdays are not good for me, but might not be. I'm not sure about that.
Oh, so that's a different thing. We're talking about on the 25th when we're talking about wisdom. If anyone wants to do that session with me and work with me on that, very welcome.
Beautiful.
And then we may change the Tuesday thing. We can change it.
Because we have choice. Yeah. On that note, and Sarah, lovely to have you with us. Sorry your video didn't last out all the way, but it's lovely to see you. Nice to have some of our American coaches with us. And yeah, have a great week, everyone, and a great weekend.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.